Hey Colts fans, I'm JJ Stankevitz and welcome into another episode of the Colts Show, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. We are presented by our friends at Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. Today I'm joined by my friend Larra Overton. We are going to do a full recap of the 2025 season, look ahead to the 2026 offseason. Before we get into that though, I do just want to say, I hear fan sentiment right now. I know a lot of fans are not happy. A lot of people who are listening to this, are watching this, are not happy with the direction of this football team. I hear that. It's our job here to kind of break down what happened in 2025 and look ahead to 2026. The NFL calendar doesn't stop. We are, Larra, a month and a half away from the NFL Combine?
Oh, yeah, if that. Probably, maybe, 40 days from the
40
Combine?
days.
Yeah.
We've got, there are some big decisions that are going to be happening in the next couple of weeks, potentially, leading up to the Combine, and then you got free agency, and there's a lot to get into here. But I do understand that, a lot of fans did want some change to happen. I do think, just as a starting point here, I think the reason why the Colts kept Chris Ballard and Steichen in place is because and this is what Carlie Irsay-Gordon said, Larra, is the first 10 games of the season, you're trying to replicate that. And to me, that is your best path of building a contender in the next 2 to 3 years, is trying to replicate that. And to do that, you have to keep the same people in place. So that's just where I wanted to start to kind of address that. But let's look at the 2025 season, Larra. When you think about this team, just blanket, what's the first thing that pops into your head about the 2025 Colts as a season if you were just recapping it right now?
Can't finish close games.
Yeah. What was the record in close games was not
3-7 in one possession games. 3 times during their 7-game losing streak, the defense failed to hold a lead in the closing minutes. And what did we see from Wild Card Weekend to this point is how many close games there were. And
the lead changes after the 2-minute warning were crazy.
Well, and just looking at, obviously, through the 8-2 start, you had this explosive offense. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor was on an MVP pace with the way he was running the ball. But even sitting at 8-2, both of those losses in that stretch, Rams and Steelers, I think you scored 20 points.
Yeah.
You have to be able to win games even when your offense doesn't score more than 20 points. Those were both 27-20 losses. I'm even going to kind of lump in the Kansas City game just because that's another example of you scored 20 points, which still is, it's a lower scoring game for this team. But I just think about you have to have the ability to even win tight games, win low-scoring games. That's what you see. Good teams find ways to win in different ways. You can't always bank on your team putting up the wins, 33 points, 29 points, 40 points, 31 points, 38, 30, 31, especially at a point in the season as teams started to figure out this Colts offense and the way that they were able to commit to stopping the run. They were selling out to stop the run, and you couldn't figure out ways to diversify your offense and be more productive. I think about the quote from Chris Ballard: offensively, we've got to be able to run it when we want to run it. I will say that when Daniel Jones got hurt, it took away some of the things we could do from a mobility standpoint, which I think affected it, but that's something we will dig into. And to me, that has to be an immediate priority right now. As you think about everyone's being retained, there's a sense of urgency. You have to look at the inability to start moving the ball and just look at the fact that even when you were 8-2, you still couldn't win games in which you didn't put up more than 20 points.
Right. I think that's such a good point because how many games? It was 4 games in the first 10? The Colts got their starters out of the game in the fourth quarter because they were blowing out opposition to that point.
Which is also what good teams do. Good teams do put away bad teams and, leave nothing to be decided as well.
But this team, they won the close game against Arizona. They won a close game against Denver where they had a little bit of good fortune with, the missed field goal that Will Lutz had and then the 60-yarder Schrader misses that you get the leverage penalty. I don't know if this team learned how to win those games down the stretch. And then the Rams game, where you have this brutal mistake by A.D. Mitchell and then, can't really overcome that over the course of the game, even though you do take the lead in, later in the game. That is something that, like I struggle with this, though, because sometimes you look at teams that win one-score games, and if you've got a really good record in one-score games, sometimes the narrative is, oh, that team got lucky, right? Like those, there are a couple of Vikings teams recently where it's like, they just won all these one-score games, and then they get blown out in the playoffs. But I do think there's something to that, to having that grit down the stretch to win those games. You don't need to go 11-1 in one-score games, but at least be 500. And I think when you're under 500, you can't just chalk it up to bad luck, missed calls, the bounce of the ball going, a certain way. And that is something that I wrote this on Colts.com at one point. Like, this team is not a team that can sit here right now at 8-9 and say we were just like a couple plays away, because that happened too many times for you to say we were just like 2 or 3 plays away from being a playoff team. There were too many of those instances down the stretch, especially.
And this is a quote from Mo Alley-Cox, one of our favorite guys to talk to in the locker room, both in big wins and in losses, because Mo was always just going to be one of the most candid guys and offers such great perspective. The veteran that he is, everything that he's been through. And he was saying, that's something he said, just not being able to finish games. We've been up. Kansas City, we were up. Things like that. Seattle, we were up. So it's not like we didn't have chances to win a bunch of these games. The other thing, JJ, is the fact that the Colts were just 2-8 against teams that finished 500 or better in 2025 and lost 7 straight games to close out the season. They were 6-1 against teams that were under 500.
Right.
So you've got to win close games and you've got to beat good teams. Those are just the two things that have to be addressed, where, yes, you were 8-2 at one point, but I also think you have to, as much as you look at the promise that there was in the 8-2 start, you also have to be very honest that there were things that you lacked, and there were some liabilities too within that stretch that were exposed later in the season.
Yeah, let's talk about the record against bad teams. And you're looking at beating the absolute snot out of the Titans, the Raiders.
Raiders, yep, that's what I was thinking
of. The Titans and the Raiders, the Dolphins, these are bad football teams. But and this is, again, where something like I'm trying to mentally figure out where I land on it. And this is why I kind of want to talk through it on this podcast. The Colts entering week 12. So this is after the bye. They were number 1 in the NFL in point differential. There were 3 teams at that point that were plus 100 or better. It was the Colts, the Rams, and the Seahawks. The Rams and the Seahawks, I think, are roundly considered the 2 best teams in the NFL right now.
Man, Carolina almost proved that wrong, huh?
Well,
this weekend,
for some reason, the Rams struggle with the Panthers.
Wow,
yeah.
that was
playoff football, though.
It's playoff football,
yeah.
but no, you're totally right. Totally right.
You were in the grouping with those 2 teams. The Colts are number 1 in EPA per play, number 1 in success rate. They scored on 57.6% of their drives. That was best in the NFL. The difference between the Colts at number 1 and the Chiefs at number 2 at that point was greater than the difference between the Chiefs at number 2 and the Texans at number 16. The Colts were so much better than most of the league at that point. And so, yes, they were beating up on teams that were subpar, but they were beating the absolute hell out of those teams. That matters to me. Yes, the Raiders were an atrocious football team this year, but he won that game by 34 points. The Jaguars had to go to overtime to beat the Raiders. Now, the Jaguars made the playoffs because they figured out ways to win games late, but there is something to me, just like a good old-fashioned, beat them down. Like the Hoosiers, right?
Oh, the Hoosiers. I was going to say, speaking of the Raiders, Fernando Mendoza, future Raiders
quarterback, probably. I think the Peach Bowl solidified who's the number 1 overall pick next year.
Unbelievable. Also, while we're clarifying things, I don't want people to think I'm sitting this way unprofessionally. It's because my pants are very very slippery, and so if I sit any other way, I'm going to slide right out of this seat. So I don't want people to think that I am unprofessional and too casual here on the chair. This is just, I have secured myself in a fashion with which I won't be sliding back and forth and moving all around.
By the end of this episode, you're just going to be slouching. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
My feet also don't touch the front floor. So we have that.
Tough scene there. Okay.
Tough scene.
I don't know, Larry, where do you fall on beating bad teams, but beating them by 21, 20, 30, 34 points?
Yeah, I think that, you have to show no mercy in those situations. And you look to the fact that those were opportunities for this team to continue developing, continue showing who they were, continue expanding this offense. I think that there's a lot to be said, obviously, for the productivity that this offense was able to have. The fact that during that 8-2 start, Jonathan Taylor had 5 100-yard games and 15 rushing touchdowns. Like, that to me was so encouraging, the way that you were able to run the football in particular. The diversity of different people that you were using within the offense as well, the way that Daniel Jones was spreading the ball around. I think the way that Tyler Warren introduced himself to the league at that point in time, I loved the diversity that Shane was able to incorporate when he was using, obviously, the wealth of weapons at his disposal with guys like Tyler Warren, and having that be a newer weapon within this offensive scheme, something you haven't really, seen before. The emergence of Alec Pierce, of course, within this stretch as well. The fact that, he went over 1,000 yards this season, and he did so from 3 different quarterbacks. Let me see. I've got the whole breakdown here. We go. Okay. 1,003 receiving yards, which is his first 1,000-yard season. Led the league in yards per reception at 21.3. Career highs in catches, yards, targets, and touchdowns. And I also read this yesterday. Alec Pierce, with 47 receptions, was the only 1,000-yard receiver with under 65 catches.
Huh. And that's not even, you're talking about 18 fewer than 65.
Significant. Yeah. So when you're looking to a lot of those, stats with, you had these very high scoring, kind of beat down efforts against, teams that were below 500, I think that helped support a lot of, the production that you saw, the numbers that you saw from guys like Warren, Pierce, and Taylor.
It's a small sample size because the 2 games you played against good teams in the first 10 were against Denver and the Chargers. Mm-hmm. And in those 2 games, Daniel Jones played really well. Mm-hmm. The Chargers game, he didn't have to do a ton because Jonathan Taylor was ripping off those runs. But that Denver game, he made some absolutely nails throws in that game to go win that game. This is where, again, kind of like I mentioned at the top of the episode, you're trying to replicate the first 10 games. We don't know if the Colts could have grown upon that against the good opposition they played down the stretch, because Daniel Jones is playing with a broken fibula. Mm-hmm. And then he tore his Achilles. Mm-hmm. So who knows what it looks like if Daniel Jones doesn't experience that significant leg pain in those games against Kansas City, Houston, and then Jacksonville until he tore his Achilles. That's where the biggest question mark to me resides for this Colts team, in how can you replicate it? Because I do think a lot of what the Colts were doing in the first 10 is replicable, because they were so good at it. They're number 1 in DVOA in the first 8 weeks of the season. And then even with losing 8 of their final 9 games, the Colts finished 5th in DVOA this year. That's how good they were to start the year. I think this is replicable, but we just don't know what Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones could have got to as an offense with a healthy Daniel Jones.
I also think that you have to look at, I think back to that Chargers game and the question from Evan Washburn, who, by the way, Evan Washburn is one of the best sideline reporters in the game. Absolutely one of my favorite people to watch. I love the way that he conducts interviews. It's awesome. But I think about the point where he asked to Daniel Jones, and it was kind of for Daniel to be as usually very even keel, doesn't typically say a whole lot. There was this great moment of kind of personality and confidence that Daniel exuded when he said, "Sounds like y'all didn't know much," right? Unbelievable soundbite, right? And I think about it, and yes, you're exactly right. There's so much that you can replicate from that, or you can look to be replicated with this offense and the direction they were headed. However, it's also something where, people didn't know much. And as there was more and more film on this team, defenses figured it out, and they were able, and that's typically what happens. Is I do think that early on in the season, this offense was able to surprise a lot of people, catch a lot of people off guard. There was a ton of variety in what they were able to do. Well, as there's more and more tape for teams to digest, you also saw that teams were able to figure out, the weaknesses of this team, exploit the weaknesses of this team.
I think that was really true in the run game.
Absolutely. Yes.
You can't just explain away. I mean, the Colts face very good run defenses down the stretch. You saw how Buffalo could not run the ball against the Jaguars with James Cook, who is right up there with Jonathan Taylor in terms of yards this year. But that was I think that was not just a product of I face some really good run defenses, because you should be a really good run team.
Yep.
That even if you don't have a quarterback who is mobile, like Daniel Jones was in the first 10 games, you got to figure out how to run it in those situations.
Over the final 7-game losing streak, Jonathan Taylor had 0 100-yard games and just 3 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. And yet, the 74 yards he had against the Jaguars is the most the Jaguars have allowed to a single running back all year. The 70 yards he had in the other game against the Jaguars is the second most yards the Jaguars have allowed to a single running back this year. But, having said that, if you were going to be a playoff team, you're going to have to figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure out how to run the ball against the Jaguars and the Seahawks and the Texans down the stretch. And, by the way, against a pretty weak rushing defense in the Niners, the Colts struggled to run the ball.
I also think you have to be able to evolve as the season goes on. If you're talking about we have to play our best games in November and December, and we heard that reiterated over and over and over, and you didn't. And so I think that you do have to be able to do that, and that's something that you have to look at is, yes, the 8-2 start was very real, and we choose to believe in the optimism of that, but we also have to be able to evolve beyond that and take that start and continue to develop as a football team.
I think that's an important point, Larra, is that when the charge from Carlie Irsay-Gordon is to replicate that, it comes with you also need to improve. It's not just we're throwing the 7 games out.
Right.
It's we're taking those 7 games.
You're kind of compartmentalizing the two.
Right, and you're saying, yes, you dealt with a lot down that stretch, which we will get into here, but that's not an excuse. This is kind of the point I made here in the rundown. The San Francisco 49ers this year are you cannot make the excuse for injuries when the 49ers exist.
Also, George Kittle, come on.
I know. And they still won.
They still won, but I feel awful.
I mean, it's an Achilles.
I know.
But I mean, so the Kittle is the cherry on top of the vomit cake the 49ers have had to deal with this year. They have lost. I mean, they've lost. Brock Purdy missed 5 games. George Kittle missed 7 games before this. Fred Warner, the best linebacker in the NFL, misses 11 games. Nick Bosa, one of the best defensive ends in the NFL, misses 14 games.
And didn't McCaffrey miss a couple in there too, I think?
McCaffrey's actually been healthy this year.
Oh, wow.
Which is
okay.
I know, you just sort of assume he's been banged up so much. Trent Williams has been in and out. Ricky Pearsall's been in and out.
Yeah.
And they went 12-5 in the regular season and just won a playoff game in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That is, and look, they're an outlier in that.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, injuries are the number one thing that will sink a season. But Shane Steichen hasn't used it as an excuse. Chris Ballard has not used it as an excuse. Carlie Irsay-Gordon does not view it as an excuse. And you can't this season specifically because of the 49ers, who, by the way, walked into your building and shredded your defense.
Yep.
In week 16.
I mean, I was thinking about it too. I was watching Jacksonville yesterday and thinking about, Travis Hunter, right? They've had a healthy Trevor Lawrence, but you look at the factor of that's, an area where they've lost guys this season. I mean, you could point to different teams all across the league. Certainly the 49ers.
Everyone deals with it.
Yeah, the 49ers. And for the most part, none of them had it happen to with the lost games, but not an entire season or the remainder of a season with a quarterback either. So that's another, factor in all of that.
Yeah, Purdy missed 5 games and, Mac Jones filled in.
Yeah.
The Houston Texans winning streak started with Davis Mills on the field.
Wow.
C.J. Stroud was out for 3 games.
Was it concussion for
with a concussion,
CJ? Yeah.
And they won all 3 of those games, including one at home against the Bills on Thursday night with Davis Mills at quarterback.
Yeah.
So, again, it can't be an excuse. Now, none of those teams are down to their 3rd-string quarterback or having to call a quarterback off the couch because, by the way, the other part of this is Anthony Richardson missed a lot of the season, this is a question I had in here. If Anthony Richardson didn't have that freak eye injury before week 6, does this season look different? If you are able to go, because when the Colts designed this quarterback room, knowing Daniel Jones has not had a fully healthy season in the NFL, I think maybe he's had one or two. But he's been a guy who has been banged up and had to miss some time. It hasn't been as significant as it was this year. But if you have Anthony Richardson to step in Jacksonville and then 15, 16, 17, 18, does it look different? Are you playing for something in Houston in week 18? Like, that's the thing I keep going back to. I don't know how many of those games you necessarily win, but my gut is you walk into Houston in Week 18 and you're playing for a playoff spot.
And I say I hate this question because I hate what Anthony has had to go through this season.
I know.
I hate what happened to him. I mean, you heard everyone who was asked about Anthony, in the, as we had locker clean out and everything last Monday. Like, everyone talked about how exceptional of a teammate that he has been through all of this. Like, through the injury that he sustained, obviously having to heal up and rehab.
Well, even before that, he's the number 4 overall pick, and he lost the starting job.
And was in complete support of Daniel and locked in for everything. I mean, he had the best, camp that we have seen from him to this point.
He did, yeah.
All of these things, and I absolutely hate the circumstance. That's why I say I hate the question, is because I hate that we even have to, evaluate the circumstance. Here, though, JG is what comes to mind for me. You talk about that Daniel Jones has not finished a season healthy. Also, Anthony Richardson hasn't finished a season healthy. That's a big gamble to say that Anthony Richardson would have even been able to stay on the field.
It's true.
Had he stepped in for Daniel Jones. Because in 2023, he played 4 games, got injured in week 5. 2024, played 4, missed 2, played 2, missed 2, played 5, and then missed the final 2.
Yeah.
And then 2025, pregame injury in week 6. So could it have looked different? Absolutely. I also think that that's a big statement to say that Anthony even would have stayed healthy through that stretch of games.
We know what
with
the offense...
games you were facing, the defenses you were facing.
We know what the offense would have looked like. It would have been this run-heavy, pound it, play action, deep over type of offense that I think the Colts would have adapted to, but you are putting your quarterback in harm's way by doing that, by running him 10 times a game. So, no, it's a fair point, but it is one that I can't totally get out of my head because of the freak nature of the accident that happened to Richardson.
And not only the one that happened to Richardson, the one that happened to Charvarius Ward in the exact same game, just minutes away from, so many of these things.
So that's where I'm trying to balance, okay, so we talked about the Niners and what they went through with their best players getting hurt. Mykal Williams, by the way, was the other guy I forgot to mention, their first-round pick. He got hurt. But the Colts this year, Daniel Jones missed the final 4 games. DeForest Buckner missed 7 games. Charvarius Ward missed 4 games down the stretch. Sauce Gardner missed 4 games down the stretch. Braden Smith missed 4 games down the stretch. These, the ones on defense, to silo those out, you lost arguably, I would say 3, not maybe arguably, 3 or 5 best players on defense are out. And the resources that you put into those guys also is a factor here. You put a lot of weight into DeForest Buckner, right? Because of how good of a player he is, how much of a staple he is for this team. You were aggressive to get Charvarius Ward into this building, and then you're even more aggressive to get Sauce Gardner into this building, and then both those guys are hurt down the stretch. That is, and you talk about bad luck. That is straight up bad luck, where you're now down to it's similar-ish. You're down to your 3rd, 4th, 5th string cornerbacks, just like you're down to your 3rd string, 4th string quarterback option. Teams that lose that type of depth, it's not just you're losing one guy at one position. You're losing the top 2 guys. And that's also what this defense was supposed to be built around, was this amazing secondary that you poured a ton of resources into. And then you can't play the way you want to play down the stretch because you don't have the guys you expected to have in there.
Not to mention even going back to preseason when you lost Justin Wally, who would have been an important piece in all of this, right?
If
that's
you don't
another
lose
factor.
Justin Wally, do you trade for Sauce Gardner?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really open-ended question.
Another injury, this happened obviously kind of prior to the stretch that you're talking about, but I just think about the factor of losing Spencer Schrader in the fashion that you did, and then having to go through the Michael Badgley experiment to then, obviously land on Blake Grupe.
Who wasn't available when Spencer got hurt.
So even that was a wild chain of events too, to try to, mend that area, which Spencer Schrader had been incredible for you to the start of the season.
He
Obviously, there were
year.
some, Badgley, there were instances in which there were missed kicks that cost you games.
Yeah, the Texans game.
in particular, that one, and you don't always all place it upon the kicker,
Right.
but that's just another area within this that I think that obviously the defense is huge, and that's going to be the majority of it with the guys, given the guys who you're talking about, but that's just kind of another factor in all of this where you were trying to kind of band-aid a position to figure it out in the meantime, and then eventually getting to Blake Grupe, who I thought was phenomenal.
He was fantastic. The thing that I go back to on this, though, is, again, if we're looking forward to 2026, you can't just sit here and say, well, if everyone's healthy, we will be good.
You can never bank on that.
You never can bank on that. I think you can say, yes, if everyone's healthy, we are going to be good. We will be a good defense because the talent of those guys is there. Now, we need to see what the future holds for Charvarius Ward, who kind of intimated in the locker room last week that he is pondering his future. We'll see where that goes. But you have to be able to overcome that in a better way. It can't just be, well, we didn't have the players, so we couldn't pull it off. You got this is, and again, it is to me, it's a fair thing to say sometimes that injuries torpedoed a season. If you're just kind of zooming out from like our perspective, is analyzing it, I do think it's a fair thing to say this season was torpedoed because of injuries. But for Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, it cannot be your strategy to say, you just got to stay healthy this year.
Also, the players who were on the field when you had winnable situations to finish games.
Yeah.
The Kansas City game in and of itself is one that I think about. The Seattle game, these are just ones that, I think about in particular. I'm going back to my notes. I got a bunch of different okay, so you were leading the Chiefs 20-9 in the fourth quarter at Arrowhead Stadium to end up losing 23-20 in overtime. You couldn't get you were trailing Houston 2016, but in position for a comeback. You were on 1st and 10, drive stalled out. You couldn't run the ball with JT. You had, consecutive incompletion. Seattle, you hold that offense, to you don't allow a touchdown in that game. What was it, 37 seconds or something, whatever it was in that one. So they're just players who are on the field
those are the ones that stick with you after the season, and you can't chalk it up to necessarily just injuries. I do want to have kind of a really measured discussion about Daniel Jones' season, though, because I think that's important that we do that. We will get to that, though, right after this break here on The Colts Show. The Colts Show is presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, where every day is game day. Greatness in the NFL starts long before kickoff. It's built in the quiet hours of preparation and the discipline to turn insights into action. The Indianapolis Colts rely on Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PCs to turn preparation into performance. With real-time AI-powered insights right on the sideline, coaches and players can make smarter, faster decisions when it matters most. From the field to the front office, Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PCs are transforming how the Indianapolis Colts prepare, strategize, and win. This isn't just about football, it's about unlocking potential wherever the game is played. Hey Colts fans, the Colts Sunday night 7-on-7 series is returning. Boys tackle and dedicated girls flag can train in an open gym format across select Sundays this winter. Presented by Forte Sports Medicine and Orthopedics with support from Gatorade and the Gridiron Foundation. Sign up now at Colts.com/SN7on7. Okay, back here on the Colts Show, I'm JJ Stankevitz with Larra Overton. I feel like we didn't ever have a chance to digest Daniel Jones' season because he tears his Achilles in Jacksonville. The next day, Phillip Rivers pops into the facility here on 56th Street to sling it around with Coleman Owen and, who was the other guy? Eli Pankel?
Yeah, that's it, yes.
And they signed Phillip Rivers, and it's like, oh my God, this is the biggest NFL news story of the month. Daniel Jones is like old news by the end of it.
It's like, oh, by the way, his procedure was successful, and we're on to Phillip Rivers.
I do remember that. It was like that Wednesday where Shane. It's like a 20-minute press conference.
I shouldn't laugh.
It's his 20-minute press conference, and it's all about Phillip Rivers. And then at the end of it, Shane's like walking off, and he goes, "Oh, and by the way, Daniel's procedure was successful."
Yeah.
I do want to take kind of a long look at what Daniel Jones did because the Colts still have to re-sign Daniel Jones. They have to find a way to keep him in the building, but I think the trend right now would be that he's probably back next year. Again, a lot still has to happen to do that, But I think that is where, if you listen to Shane, Chris Ballard, Carlie, Irsay-Gordon, I think a lot of signs are pointing that way. Again, it's not finalized, so I can't guarantee it, but I do think we need to start laying the tracks for what it looks like.
I mean, yeah, everything pointed to that they're very much going to make every effort to bring him back.
Yes.
JJ, can you clarify for people kind of the outlook with an Achilles injury at that position and everything that we know, like how big of a gamble is that on his being healthy, or what's kind of the time frame with which you would expect to see him back in any football related capacity? Because we've seen him, he's been, around the building, he's been on game days, zipping around on the scooter, all of that, doing absolutely everything, still being immensely present. Every
single thing that I have heard in my conversations, both in, press conferences and just walking around here, is that he is really, it's not just him saying he's going to be ready for training camp, which he did. He is going to be ready for training camp. Like, and granted, there's a lot of stuff that you still have to go through the process. Yeah. And you can't have setbacks and all that. But like, he is nuts about rehab. Yeah. Like, he is fully committed to it. I think is going to do whatever he can to day one of training camp up at Grand Park, being out there with this team. Now, granted, part of that process again has to be the Colts re-signing him, him getting a contract to stay here. But from an Achilles standpoint, I don't think that's going to hold him back from being cleared to practice. Now, what does that look like in reality? Yeah. Are there going to be any restrictions on him? Is it going to be maybe a bit of a slow build for him? But I think, I think a lot of people, when it happened, just assumed it's a year.
That's what I thought.
But for the different sports, right? Because you hear Tyrese tears his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and it's like immediately, it was like, he's not back next year. So I think you probably get that in your head a little bit of when this could happen. It is different sports, different requirements, different stresses. And we have seen older quarterbacks come back.
Aaron Rodgers.
Kirk Cousins, another one. We have seen that older quarterbacks come back from this the season after, week 1. Kirk Cousins, I know his Achilles tear was maybe a month earlier, but Kirk Cousins at 35 was ready to go for day 1 of training camp.
The other question that I've heard, and I know you want to get into digesting Daniel's season, but the other thing is there have been some questions as of obviously a quarterback with which mobility is such a strength of him. How much concern do you have regarding, coming back off of an injury of that severity that could impact mobility? But then everything that I've heard is when that's healed and when it's ready to go, yes, you'll have a build, but there should not be any limitation on him, and this should not be a long-term hindrance to his mobility that he was obviously such a strength of his and such a key component of this offense.
The mobility thing is interesting because it's not like Daniel Jones was scrambling all over the place this year. He wasn't doing a ton of designed runs. That was not a staple of his game like it had been with the Giants. This was not something the Colts leaned into. The mobility we're talking about here, Larra, is boots, half rolls.
God, how much of that did we see in Berlin?
Yeah,
so much of that.
It's getting him on the move outside of the pocket, but not him running the football. Where the fibula impacted him, because I asked Daniel about this, was anytime he had to push off his leg or had to decelerate, it hurt. It was tough, and the fact that he played through it is incredible. But I think the fibula should be healed. The Achilles should be healed. And if you can get him on the move a little bit with those boots and those rolls, that is what this offense needs. It doesn't need him to scramble 5 times a game. It needs him to be able to just get outside the pocket, and that helps your play action game. That helps your run game. So I'm confident he can get back to that. Let's talk about what he did this season, though. Because what he did leading up to the fibula injury was phenomenal. He was outstanding as a quarterback.
MVP conversation.
People was.
Were talking about this guy.
And, I mean, whether or not he ultimately finishes in that realm of a Stafford or a May, maybe not. But Daniel Jones was good. He was a straight-up good quarterback. There are a couple things that I look at for him where I'm just interested in kind of the discourse around it. Because I think a lot of people expect he's going to fall right back to where he was with the Giants, which was a bottom-tier quarterback in terms of production. But Daniel Jones this year, he was third in the NFL in completion percentage at 68%, fifth in yards per attempt at 8.1, 10th in, this is entering week 12. I'm looking at the wrong thing. But he was top 6 in completion percentage, yards per attempt, and passer rating. So those are all pretty good things right there that he was able to do. And then, so you look at some of the numbers behind it, and there were real improvements that he made as your quarterback. Before we get into those, Larra, like, where do you sort of fall on Daniel Jones weeks 1 through 10 versus Daniel Jones weeks like 12 through 14?
I'm going back to some notes that I have here. So just give me a quick second as I'm trying to kind of figure out where all of this was from Shane and some notes that I had on Daniel.
A lot of notes.
Lot of
notes on Daniel Jones.
Of notes. And there is just, it's the comment where, and I'd have to go back and find it really quickly, but it is Shane talking about Daniel and the way that he sees the game.
Okay, that was a point that I was gonna bring up here too.
Okay, let me.
So while you're looking for that, another reason why I think you run it back, right, is because Shane and Daniel had such a great connection. This is what I was thinking about here. From weeks 1 through 10, Daniel Jones threw to receivers who were classified as open or wide open by Pro Football Focus 95 times. That was the second highest total in the NFL for any team. So 95 open or wide open targets. Wow. You might sit here and say, well, it's Shane Steichen making it easy on him, but that would be a completely reductive way to think about this Colts offense. What Shane Steichen does is he gives his quarterback a package of plays. You go to the line of scrimmage, read out the defense, and get us into the right look and formation, and one of these plays will work against whatever defense you read. You have to have a quarterback who is firmly connected to his head coach to be able to do that, who sees the game the same way as his head coach. Those 95 wide open targets are a product of the relationship between Daniel Jones and Shane Steichen.
And this is what Shane had to say, and this is a note that I have. I had to go all the way back to week 11 because I was like, I knew this was in my game notes and how I break everything down for sidelines. So this is Shane talking about Daniel. The biggest thing that stands out to me is the way he sees the game. He sees it the right way. Not only watching tape, but also you can have side conversations where you don't have to look at the tape and you kind of have, hey, here's what they're playing. We're thinking this versus this. He can picture it in his head. I think that pays huge dividends for us. And that connection of Shane being a former quarterback, Daniel being a quarterback, the way that they see the game, the way they align. This is something that I had talked with Daniel about way early in the season. And he said having a guy who's played the position, that's a huge deal. And then in regards to Shane, he said he brings great passion and enthusiasm into meetings and how he teaches scheme, very detailed, and how he communicates what he wants to see in the offense. As a quarterback, all those things help you learn what he wants to see in the system. Communication has been really good.
When I had Daniel on the podcast before the season, the thing I brought up to him is like, Shane doesn't want to be the smartest guy in the room as like an offensive play caller and designer. He's like, let's get to what works. And the thing Daniel said is there's a lot of genius in that simplicity. And I thought about that a lot over the first 10 games. This was not an offense that was like having to do all these, smoke and mirrors, Mickey Mouse stuff. Yeah. It was like, we're gonna boot, we're gonna throw it to the open guy, and we're gonna stay efficient and ahead of the chains. And it was very simple.
And we're going to have explosive runs with Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly. Right. Hand the ball off. Like, that's what Daniel's answer was, by the way, talking about like him running it. He's like, well, why would I need to run it when I've got 28 next to me? So this was an offense that was so well designed and constructed with a coach and a quarterback who saw the game the same way. That's how you get to the level of success the Colts had. The areas where Daniel Jones himself, I think, improved. 2 areas, Larra. Number 1, he pushed the ball. Like, another thing I remember about our conversation that I had with Daniel prior to the season was, like, I brought up to him people saying, you don't really throw it deep much, and he kind of bristled at it. He was like, I guess, people say that about my game.
Wasn't that one of the biggest comments when he was named the starter is, what does this mean for Alec Pierce? Oh,
like what does it mean for Alec Pierce?
Right,
he's going to have a great year.
And also, Alec Pierce is not just the deep ball guy, but everyone was also underestimating Alec Pierce and all that. But wasn't that one of the biggest narratives out of that was people didn't think that you would have that deep ball threat with that tandem?
Well, turned out you did. Daniel Jones, so this year, coming into this year, his average depth of target from 2019 to 2024 was 7.5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. That was 61st out of 64 qualified quarterbacks in that stretch. This year, entering week 12, which again, I'm going to cut it off at like the fibula where that did change some things with the offense. But entering week 12, he was averaging an average depth of target of 8.9 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, which was 11th in the NFL. So you're not chucking and ducking, but he would push it when the time called for it. Like I think about the touchdown he had to Pierce in Berlin, where they got quarters and they had a post behind it, and he just said, I'm ripping that thing. Those are not necessarily throws that he was making with the Giants because I think he didn't have maybe the receivers to do it. He also didn't have the protection to do it, which brings me
offensive line
to my next point.
Yep.
Daniel Jones this year, he had the lowest pressure to sack ratio of his career. 14.6% of the time he was pressured, he was sacked. That was 9th lowest in the NFL.
Wow.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So we're talking about if you're in that like top 10, or I guess bottom 10 maybe, in lowest pressure to sack ratio, that's a really good thing. He only took 22 sacks this year. And 7 of those came against the Steelers in just a game that like completely got out of hand?
Yeah.
That is something you can build on. That is, again, a coach and a quarterback seeing the game the same way. A quarterback who trusts his line and trusts his receivers, you get a low pressure to sack ratio like that. That's a really good thing.
It's a really good thing. Absolutely.
So that's where I think you can build with Daniel Jones in terms
Majority
of
that O-line's back, too.
Right. And then that brings us, the line's back. I think, maybe we'll see what happens at right tackle.
Because Braden Smith's free agent.
Right. Jalen Travis had some good moments down the stretch.
Yep.
But I think you've got a line that can protect him, and you've got a coach and a quarterback and a skill set, a group of receivers who he trusts, and a running back who he trusts. That is where I think this offense can continue to grow and can find ways to replicate that success from early in the season. Let's talk about free agency, though. We'll kind of close out the pod here with a little off-season preview, because your leading receiver is a free agent. Your quarterback is a free agent. Those are two things that you've got to figure out. That is a huge, and Chris Ballard said, basically we'd like to have Daniel back. And he said Alec's a priority. Alec Pierce is a priority.
Well, can I throw this out really quickly? What are the options if you didn't bring Daniel Jones back? What are you left with there?
I mean, you have Anthony Richardson on your roster,
and
but
you have Riley Leonard.
The vision limitations for Richardson still are. Those need to be cleared up, and that's not something he can rehab his way out of.
Right, and so obviously that's something with time and a lot of things that he will work on. But I just looking at you kind of have to, right? Your
option is Riley Leonard, or you go out and Malik Willis.
And you already know that you have a guy who works in this system that your head coach loves, that the rest of this locker room loves. This is a given. You got to find a way to get it.
You have to come to a deal that's fair for both sides.
Yeah,
within Daniel saying, I'd love to be back, and the Colts saying we would like to have you back. You still have to come to that deal.
Right.
It's not it's not a guarantee. It's a process, and it's one that I don't think anyone back there is just going to take for granted.
How many other? I mean, what do you think too? Your competition is across the market.
Right. There are other teams that need quarterbacks.
Right.
So that is a part of it. Is you signed him to a 1-year deal because that's what his market was last year. His market's different this year. Let's talk about Pierce though, because the connection he had with Daniel Jones was outstanding. And like you mentioned earlier, he turned into a receiver who could threaten you at all three levels. The catch that I will go back to for Alec Pierce from 2025, 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 6 against the Broncos with a minute to go or whatever it was. They're at the 50-yard line. Pierce runs a drag. He beats Surtain, accelerates away from Surtain, who is maybe the best cornerback in the NFL, catches that ball on 3rd and 6 for a 7-yard gain, and they get the first down. That is the growth that Alec Pierce showed right there. Where, hey, you need someone to go make a play.
Yep.
Get the ball to 14, and it doesn't have to be 40 yards down the field.
Mm-hmm. I was talking with Alec about this throughout the season, and he had said that the intermediate route running is something he's been working on for years. It's just that this year he's finally gotten a lot more chances to showcase it.
Yeah.
This wasn't necessarily something that was new. Everyone kept, this is, I mean, yes, a credit to him for developing that, working with Reggie, all of those things. But like, this has been something that has been an area that he's been developing and just now had the opportunity to showcase that ability. I asked him to, JJ, I said, does that development come more from reps or from film study? And he said, reps is the biggest thing, a lot of drill work. Best way to get better at route running is to run the routes. You can do all those cone drills, but it's the only way to really do it is to run at full speed. He also sought a ton of feedback from Reggie each and every day after practice, a ton of that feedback. And, that's Shane just talked about his development. The catch radius has been phenomenal. The way he's able to pluck the ball away from defenders, continue to make strides has been great for us. And one of my things about Alec, again, I'm going to go back to, he had the season he had, and he had 3 different quarterbacks. Like you talked, yes, he had the connection with Daniel Jones. He also showcased that connection with Riley Leonard at Houston against the league's best defense.
Yeah, which was playing its guys in the first 2 quarters before he got ejected for grazing the referee.
It's unbelievable, that whole situation. But I believe that 60-yard touchdown that Alec had early was the longest touchdown that Houston had allowed all season to that point. So, yeah, that's the other thing is it's not just, you're not just saying, it's Alec with Daniel Jones. It's Alec came in and was playing his first season with Matt Ryan, right? I mean, the different guys.
And he went from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger to Nick Foles to Anthony Richardson to Gardner Minshew to Anthony Richardson to Gardner Minshew to Anthony Richardson to Joe Flacco to Anthony Richardson to Joe Flacco to Daniel Jones to Phillip Rivers to Riley Leonard.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of, to his credit, what he's been able to do, how he's been able to, and just how much this offense trusts him.
Yeah. He became the guy down the stretch when this offense needed to make a play, they got the ball to 14. You look at, obviously, there's going to be a big market for him. Obviously, there are a lot of teams who would love to have that playmaking ability. Guys like Alec Pierce do not just pop up. And when I say guys like Alec Pierce, I'm talking about your ex-receiver who can win downfield outside of the numbers and also threaten you intermediate and on short routes.
Can I give you the guys who Alec Pierce likes to study film on? Because he told me, he said in the offseason he watches a lot of different NFL players. He says he tries to pick up on subtle moves they make, especially guys who are similar players to himself. Nico Collins.
Yep, X.
Mike Evans.
X.
Justin Jefferson. George Pickens.
Yeah, those are, and like Justin Jefferson is like an elite talent. I wouldn't just classify him as an X. But Mike Evans is like one of the best X receivers I've ever seen. George Pickens this year is an outstanding X receiver. And who's the other guy?
Nico Collins.
Nico Collins, like one of the best X receivers in the NFL. Where those guys are physical and they are fast and you throw the ball up to them. Like, it's like Reggie says, it's not a 50-50 ball, it's an 80-20 ball. All those guys fit into the same bucket as Alec Pierce.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he played to their level this year. And maybe even, in certain instances, like the down the field stuff was like, he was like Deshaun Jackson level of numbers on those.
Deshaun Jackson, what a great pull. Can we also talk about, like, I can't remember which game it was now, but there was like a Hail Mary situation at the end of the half, and AP went out and played defensive back.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I think that was
wanted to pick so bad.
Was that the 49ers game, maybe?
No, I feel like it was before that, but maybe. I think
it was at home. It was either 49ers or Texans.
It was definitely a home game because I remember being in the South End Zone watching it happen. But yeah, it just. And Kenny Moore was like, I forget you guys don't see that. We practice that every week. But you guys don't.
So I think like a lot of people are going to ask, like, well, how can the Colts afford Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce? They're in a good position cap-wise. Like, you can go to Over the Cap or Spot Track, and you can look up how much they have. Cap space is more fluid. Cash, you can spend cash over cap, and you can work the cap to an extent. And I do think what the Colts have done over the last year is be a little bit more aggressive in how they're structuring contracts to fit in a Sauce Gardner trade, to fit in a Cam Bynum and a Charvarius Ward in free agency. I think, and that's something where Carlie Irsay-Gordon said she saw progress from Chris Ballard. I think, there might be a dot to connect there where you have baseline, you can have the cap space to do this. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting is you have a lot of stuff you need to address on defense.
Oh, really quickly. So just in perspective of receivers. So the NFL's 20 highest paid receivers per year currently make an average of $23 million a year, with 15th at $25 million, 10th at $29 million. So that's looking at kind of market value.
Yeah,
if
right.
you
a baseline there.
Yeah.
But again, it's about resource allocation, and you have a lot of starting roles you got to fill on defense. Safety. What do you do with Nick Cross? You've already paid Cam Bynum. You've paid Sauce Gardner. We'll see what happens with Ward. You paid Kenny Moore II. You need to decide, can we pay Nick Cross? I do think there's something to Lou Anarumo wanted to play 3 safeties and needing the bodies to do it. Rodney Thomas is here, played 150 snaps on defense, kind of as that third safety. Cam Bynum and Nick Cross barely missed any time. I don't think they did miss any time.
Not that I can
think not even a single snap, potentially. So do you want to then remove a starting safety if you'd like to get into more 3 safety looks? Defensive end, Kwity Pace, Samson Ebukam, Tyquan Lewis are all free agents. Those are guys who played a lot of snaps for you. Jermaine Pratt at linebacker is a free agent, a guy who played a lot of snaps this year. So you've got a lot of...
Who didn't come in until week...
It was week
8?
7?
6, 7? Okay,
7.
Yeah. There you go.
You've got a lot of snaps you need to fill for those positions. And at some point you do, you have... The Colts will probably have 7 picks in the draft. Pro Football Focus projects they're going to get 2 7th-round comp picks. But you have a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and then 3 7s if those 2 comp picks come through.
Okay.
So, you probably need to find starters out of your day 2 picks, rounds 2 and 3.
Which the Colts have been pretty good about
They've been pretty good about that. You need, honestly, that 4th-round pick, you might need to be competing to start. Maybe you find something in the 5th. But you need to find players with those picks. And then, again, you've got a lot of holes that you need to address on defense. So how do you then allocate those resources knowing you've got Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce as free agents? You need to figure out right tackle. That might be a place where, kind of like we saw last year with Will Fries and Ryan Kelly leaving as free agents, you might say, well, we've got a guy in the pipeline, and we need to allocate our resources elsewhere. Now, Braden Smith has played a lot of really good football for the Colts, so I don't just want to throw that away. He started over 100 games at right tackle. That's not a guy you just flippantly dismiss as we can fill in for him. But that is going to be an interesting kind of decision that the Colts have to make holistically about this roster.
Because when you look at the offensive line, in particular, in the last 2 drafts, you've invested a 3rd-round pick in Matt Gonsalves in 2024, a 4th-round pick in Tanner Bortolini in 2024, and a 4th-round pick in Jalen Travis in 2025. So you've made investment in those areas for a reason.
And you've got an offensive line coach in Tony Soprano Jr., who the Colts trust to develop those guys.
Absolutely. He is awesome. One thing here, when you think about the potential areas to fill and the areas to address defensively, is Lou Anarumo is interviewing for head coaching jobs. How does it impact that area, that situation, if Lou were to leave and then you're filling that and potentially having a completely different defensive philosophy coming in?
I mean, I think you probably cross that bridge when you get there with Lou.
But that's just an interesting factor. Is obviously, he's in that, and it's the very early round of some of these interviews, but his name has been connected to a number of head coaching jobs.
Tennessee and New York.
Yeah, those are the 2 big ones,
I mean, it's something you would need to think about and consider if, you get to that point. But, I mean, we'll know by a month before free agency if you have to fill defensive coordinator position or not. But, I mean, just a lot of these discussions need to be, kind of fleshed out now. And, when we get to the NFL Combine in February, that's kind of where things really pick up. That's when you start, feeling out, hearing the rumors of teams interested in this guy or that guy. And you start feeling what the market is going to be for some of these impending free agents and decide, can you keep them or not?
February 23rd is the beginning of the NFL Combine, by the way.
That is coming up fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, you have 2.5 weeks after the Super Bowl before the Combine begins.
Once again, to end the episode the same way we started it, the NFL calendar doesn't stop for anyone.
And then March 11th begins free agency?
Yep.
There you go. Those are your kind of key dates to be looking for
up
over the next 2 months.
Well, we wanted to give everyone kind of just an overview of the 25 season, put it to bed, quick little rundown of the offseason. I think we dug into a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, there were so many stones we could have overturned here about this team and what happened in 25.
This could be a trilogy of a podcast.
Yeah, we could have gone for 3 hours and not covered everything, but try to hit the main stuff here. If you like this episode, if you like all of our episodes, please rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are Indianapolis Colts Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube as well. You can hit subscribe to our playlist on the Colts Show and subscribe to @Colts on YouTube as well. For Larra Overton, I'm JJ Stankevitz. This has been another episode of the Colts Show presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. Talk to you next week. So long.